given that there was no evidence that they were involved in any behavior that could legally be construed as incitement. Indeed, the Dominican government later retained a colonel from the Jamaica Defense Force to investigate the demonstration, and according to confidential government sources, allegedly concluded that there was no attempt to overthrow the government by anyone involved in it. Since being charged, the case against Dr. Fontaine and others has languished in limbo, despite the fact that the Dominican government has hired a high-priced attorney from Trinidad and Tobago to prosecute Dr. Fontaine. In 2018, Dr. Fontaine traveled to South Sudan to take up his official duties. The presiding magistrate issued a warrant for Dr. Fontaine's arrest because of his non-attendance at the court hearing. Netcliffe views the detention of Dr. Fontaine in custody as part of a disturbing pattern of harassment and the weaponization of Dominica's criminal laws to victimize persons who oppose the Roosevelt-Skerrit administration. Dr. Fontaine returned to Dominica voluntarily, has no criminal record, has substantial roots in Dominica, and but for the police stalling tactics following his arrest, would have been a perfect candidate for a release order. In the past, Dr. Fontaine has emerged as a thorn in the side of the Skerrit administration and has exposed numerous instances where foreign criminals and fugitives from justice have been issued with Dominica's diplomatic passports. So given the circumstances which have led to Dr. Fontaine's arrest, Netcliffe demands the immediate release of Dr. Thompson Fontaine.
Of course, Dominic, at this time, we have a full board there from Netcliffe, including Mr. Sheridan Gregoire, Mr. Nicholas George, Attorney at Law Gabriel Christian, and Dion George, PhD. I will allow the gentleman at this time and try to make it very short. Again, it's the Nature Island Dominica Civil Liberties Foundation, Netcliffe. To get your views at this stage. As I told you before, the matter has been adjourned until 2 o'clock this afternoon. As instructed by the magistrate, he will continue with the case whether the DPP is present. He has made it very clear. I find this very amazing. There's so much focus on the weekend that the police, the prosecutors are not ready to deal with the matter. Well, let's go to, of course, the full panel. Again, Sheridan Gregoire, Nicholas George, Dr. Dion George, PhD, and Attorney at Law in Washington, Gabriel Christian. Gentlemen, good afternoon to you.
Hi, Matt. How are you doing?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Matt.
Yes.
Matt, well, just to get the ball rolling, I mean, you heard the press release from Netcliffe. Netcliffe is very, very concerned and really would like to ask for the immediate release of Dr. Fontaine. Matt, you asked, you said something about amazing, but I'm asking, is this a joke?
It's a joke, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, is this a joke? I mean, here it is, you have the police knowing that Dr. Thompson Fontaine was arriving. They didn't have to go to the airport and handle him the way he did and arrest him there. But they did. They acted like there was some sense of urgency. I understand that he may have been manhandled. I wasn't there, so I cannot tell. Some people say that he was. I mean, how indecent that would be. This is a man who came to Dominica of his own volition. Why would you treat him that way? And here's a couple of things, Matt, I just wanted to add. let us remember what this case is all about. It's about a truck that had some equipment that was supposed to overthrow the government.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know that there was this report which indicated that there was no such thing. The investigation showed there was no such thing. Now, Thompson Fountain was not even on the scene. He was at the studio at Q95 when all of this was taking place. Matt, because you reported to him while he
Right.
was on the air. We have not heard anything about any arrests of any of the people who were throwing the stones in Roseau after the UWP meeting, which took place on that day. Remember, it was supposed to be after that UWP meeting that it took place. So, Madam, I'm wondering what kind of case is this? When you have, it's over 5 years, I don't have the discoveries, so I don't have all of the information, but my understanding is over 60 witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
Probably maybe around 20% of them have been cross-examined over the past 5 years. Is that an indication that they cannot find those witnesses? Is that an indication that some of them may be dead, that some of them may have left the country and gone overseas? Is that an indication that they can no longer remember what took place on that day? What is all the delay? So why is it that after 5 years, the court is not just dismissing this thing? In any other decent country, that would have been dismissed long ago. But I mean, we have been saying for the past few shows on the Global View that we think they should just drop these cases. We think they're frivolous, they're not going anywhere. And I certainly hope that they drop all of these cases, not just on Thompson Fountain, but all of the opposition people who have been charged, because it makes no sense. After 5 years, it is pointless. We're just dividing the country further. But well, as we get back to Dr. Thompson Fountain, Matt, I mean, why is it that he has to endure this kind of thing in that filthy cell? What has he done to deserve that? I mean, it is inhumane. Here is a man who has absolutely no record. He has not done anything to hurt a fly in the past, and we treat him that way. Why? Matt, let me just yield over to my other colleagues because I know that they have a lot more that they want to add. But I really think everybody's outraged by this and angered by this. And I'm sure that Gabriel, Christian, you're no exception.
Hey, Mr.
Well,
Gabriel. Yes.
Blessed good afternoon to you, Brother Matt. Always thankful for your service. Blessed good evening, good afternoon rather to you, Brother Sheridan. Blessed good afternoon, Dr. George. Dr. George is the son of Sergeant George, who taught me the rifle. His father was a Defense Force soldier, and I always remember him. Good afternoon to Nicholas George, who I knew as a constable when I was a young cadet, coming to HQ to pick up our rifles. Thursday afternoon, 1,500 hours. One of the police officers who helped us revive the Dominican Cadet Corps, and I always remember him, and Commissioner of Police Mathius Lestrade. I want the Dominican Police Force, who I want to address right now directly. The Christian family of Dominica came to Dominica through the police service. Our grandfather was the sergeant in charge of the Eastern District. L.M. Christian, his son, was a police officer. He was in charge of Portsmouth during the war. In 1944, he left the police service, opened his music school. When my father left the British Army in 1947, he joined the police service at Fort Young, which was then police headquarters, and was a drill instructor. I grew up literally in the house of Tyrell Thomas, assistant superintendent of police, and Owen Phillip, who was then the head of special branch and later commissioner of police. It is at the home of Owen Phillip I first read of Abraham Lincoln and his assassination. Why is this important? We are friends of the police service, and we shall defend the integrity and the professionalism of the good police officers when we see the destruction of the Dominican Police Service. That's what's happening now. When this administration is using the Dominican Police Service, with which we have a generations-long relationship. Your father served in the 60s as a manager of the canteen, destroying the professionalism of that organization that we dearly love, that we have almost a genetic connection with, on the altar of political expediency. Let me share with you what happens here in the United States in cases such as this. First of all, there's something called the speedy trial rule. in Maryland and in most states, if you cannot bring a case to prosecution within 6 months, in Maryland it's called the Hicks rule, it's dismissed. The only elasticity in recent times where there's been extensions is because of COVID, which has been a global pandemic, so the courthouses have been closed, so the courts now have expanded the Hicks rule because of that global health emergency.
Mm-hmm.
For 31 years, I've had cases, serious cases, of felonies and misdemeanors where warrants have been issued and where I have been retained and have filed a petition to strike the warrant. What are the things that I say? The person has retained counsel known to this court and will appear at trial in order to do so. The person, for instance, has no prior failures to appear. The person has no history of criminal transgressions in this state. The person has been resident in this state since birth and is well known. The person is holding a job. The person poses no threat to the national security or peace and safety of the community. All of those things that I've mentioned apply to Dr. Thompson Fontaine. We have a case where Thompson is alleged to have been involved in incitement. Incitement to do what? Overthrow the government by dump truck? When there's no cogent evidence that he incited anyone to do any such thing? We have an ASP here who was a police officer with SSU when there was a real effort to overthrow the government of Dominica. And he can tell you what the criteria is, where the arms are located, the plan to attack Red Dog and Red this and that and the other. He can tell you, ASP, Super can tell you, Superintendent George can tell you. So what we have are bogus charges, where the government of Dominica, led by Roosevelt Skerritt, aided and abetted by his cabinet, have used the police service as a bludgeoning tool, as a cudgel to bit the opposition and democracy activists, where they've used the same director of public prosecution in a case which went to the CCJ, the Caribbean Court of Justice. And the CCJ said that the case should be proceeded with. And the Prime Minister's attorney sends a letter asking for the case to be entered noli prosequi. And she dutifully does so. Where the Speaker of the House of Parliament, Joseph Isaac, was similarly charged. And that case has gone nowhere. Supposedly, it has been placed on the, what you call the step docket here. They say sine die. Superintendent Judge will tell you what sine die means. And he now sits as Speaker. So in this context, you see the corruption of our judiciary, the corruption of our Director of Public Prosecution's Office, where the prosecutorial tool is being used as a bludgeoning tool, a cudgel, to stifle dissent in our country. This is a political charge, and it's nothing more. This action against our brother, Thompson Fontaine, who we dearly love, is nothing more than an act of political intimidation.
What do you make, Mr. Gabriel Christian, of the fact that Thompson was arrested, on the weekend, but we come to court this morning and the police themselves seem not ready?
Well, maybe they're listening because, folks, when we criticize the police, we must always differentiate between the noble police officers because we know there are maybe more than a few. And when we criticize the DPP office, it's not out of hate, but of what you call reasoned judgment, because we know that there are thinking people in the DPP's office. And so we appeal to you, my brothers and sisters in the police service. And we appeal to you, my brothers and sisters in the DPP's office. This government is soon to fall. It will not last. And then what shall be your quality of service? And so we believe that the justified criticism we've made out of kindness and love and good sense and moral outrage that we've shown across the board in the diaspora and at home is getting through. And there are Labour Party people that I've spoken to who are saying, my Christian boy, I don't like what you say about us, but you're one of us, and we don't like that, and we don't want that to continue. That's what they've said to me. So I believe that the Prime Minister is getting pushback from within what is left of the Labour Party. He's getting pushback from elements of his cabinet, and he is a desperate man, and they are police officers, and quite likely DPP operatives, who, in this moment of decision, are thinking again of what it is they're involved with and what it is they're doing. That is my surmise.
All right, let's go to Nicholas George at this time, a former police officer, superintendent. What do you make of what is going on here, Nicholas George?
You need to open your mic, Nicholas.
Your mic. Are you there? I suspect we're not getting Nicholas George.
No, he's hearing us, but he has to just open his mic. I think his mic.
Your mic. Okay.
To the left, hit the mute button. Hit unmute.
Well, maybe we can go over to...
Yeah, let's go to Dion George at this time. I'll go back to Nicholas. Somebody sent him a message to tell him that we're not hearing him very clearly. But Dr. George, your take.
Yes, Matt, good afternoon to you and to the listeners at home and abroad. Of course, we want to thank God, the Creator, for the wisdom, and we pray that the wisdom of God and the will of God will prevail in what is a woeful and, quite frankly, regrettable event that happened to Thompson. We are in the second week of Easter, and we are celebrating a living God, a God that is alive, a God who has overcome even our worst enemy, which is death. And so when I was asked to join this cohort of my colleagues here, I did so, of course, because I'm an officer of Nitcliffe, the treasurer, but I also did so for a more personal reason. That is, Matt, what I think is a noble reason. I will give you a small allegory. After Jesus healed 10 of the lepers, only one came back and said thank you. Only one. And as the folk tale has it in Dominica, that on Monday, and today is Monday, if someone has been good to you, you should always call them and thank them. They said that bon Dieu haït en Gregoire. God hates an ungrateful person. And I say so because Thompson Fontaine, I did not know who he was. I heard about him, but I looked him up on the internet and I called him when I was doing my PhD. And Thompson flew from Washington, came and spent time with me in Atlanta and helped me very well. He taught at 3 schools, Clark Atlanta, the military school, and Atlanta Metro College. Sat in the class, taught my students. He cooked with me. He slept in the home. He hung out with my mom. We went out. And my opinion is, if I was in the same predicament that Thompson is in today, I know he will speak on my behalf, and I know he will do everything in his power to assist me. And so I want to say, Thompson, hold on. But Matt, it is very fitting that Nitcliffe, our organization, deals exactly with what Thompson is dealing. If you look at our website, our objective says that we exist to provide advocacy, education, information, and to raise funds to help provide legal defense counsel and to fight against corruption and violations of democracy and human rights. That's exactly what it says, which, by the way, fits into our overall overarching goal, which is simply to assist and support efforts and initiatives geared towards preserving democracy and human rights in our beloved country, Dominica. And so, Matt, I spent time personally with Thompson, and I can tell you undoubtedly that he is a gentleman, that he is a scholar, he is a good friend, and that he is not a criminal. And so the main question here is, what are the implications of what has transpired over the weekend? I have only 2 points to make regarding that. One, there's something called human rights. And human rights are simply the rights that we have because we are human beings. Mm-hmm. There are several generations of human rights. The first generation of human rights deals with political rights, civil rights. Specifically, it deals with freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of press. And if someone were to express their views that is different from an incumbent government, the person is within their rights to do so. I am not a seasoned Gabriel Christian, But the few years I have teaching law at the university level, I understand two things. One, there is something called substantive law, and there is something called procedural law, and that's how it deals with Thompson. Substantive law is what the law is. Do not steal. That's the law. Procedural law is how you go about applying that law. And the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution spells it out very clearly. It says that no state shall deprive anyone of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And so if one breaks the law, of course you can charge them. But how do you go about charging them? Do you say, get up, bring your backside there? Or do you handle the person? Or do you approach them and say, good afternoon, you have been charged with this. Would like to see you come to the police station during this time, at that time. How do you go about it? And where that is concerned, I suspect that there may have been violations clearly when it comes to the due process of how Dr. Thompson was treated. So what is the main point? The main point is, how does that look for Dominica? Well, given the array of instances, notably what happened in Salisbury the eve before the election, notably the fact that persons have died in police custody, and now this very regrettable situation with Dr. Fontaine, if this is the idiosyncrasies by which this government operates, if that has become the modus operandi by which they operate, it does not spell good for democracy in our beloved country. It brings about depredation of our beloved country. And so I will end with just one statement. If Thompson can hear my voice, and if he cannot hear it, I hope it's being recorded, that I would go to Psalm. Thompson, I'm looking at you in the eye. I would go to Psalm 34, verse 19, and it says, many are the afflictions of the righteous, but God delivers them from them all.
Mr. George.
Thank you.
Are you back? Yes?
Yes, are you hearing me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you now, and I just lost Dr. George. Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Man, I have heard a lot. What we have, one, Thompson Fountain was charged before the incident on the 7th of February 2017. He was to attend court in 2018. He was not present. The prosecuting attorney who had the fiat of the DPP, that is Israel Khan, the purchased prosecuting attorney, applied for a bench warrant to arrest Thompson Fountain. And the magistrate granted that request and a warrant was issued. So Thompson Fountain knew that the warrant had been issued. So anytime he arrives here, he would be arrested. He knew that. He arrived and he was arrested. Procedure. He's taken to police headquarters. Procedure. His attorneys appealed to the court, through the magistrate's court, and got a magistrate to come to police headquarters to sit over a bail hearing, not the case, a bail hearing. Now, it is nonsensical for the police to say they weren't ready on Saturday night. And the reason for that, it is not the end of an investigation that led to the warrant being issued. So they still had certain things to tie. Everything they had to tie was those knots were ended and tied in 2017, 2018. The matter is before the court. The file was already being used by the prosecutor to present witnesses in that case. So it is joke for him to be, for any police officer to be saying that. It is even ridiculous and probably insulting for the office of the DPP to say so. And here's what. Thompson was arrested, from my information, on the tarmac at Melvin Hall, not when he presented his passport to the immigration department. So that is to say, the police used the advance manifest information from American Airlines, which they would have had 1 hour in advance of the plane leaving Miami. And they would have seen through the manifest that Thompson is on board that plane. And that is why they were there and ready to go on the tarmac and arrest him, and that they did. Once that arrest was done, the next thing that had to happen was to take him before a magistrate. A magistrate made herself available at police headquarters. Procedure. When I served in the police force, that happened frequently. And it is not because it's Thompson Fountain or a big man. It happened for anybody an attorney made an appeal. The High Court, I know, opened its doors at 8:30, 9, midnight, on weekends, Sundays included, to hear appeals of habeas corpus. So it is not a matter of the trial of the case. So all that was required is to have had a complaint before the magistrate, and the magistrate would ask, I am here now to hear the bail hearing. So what do you have to say, the prosecutor? And they would say, no, we object. The defense will put up the defense, would make a decision, bail granted or not granted. If not granted, it is remanded. If granted, 20,000, 50,000, whatever the bail condition is, and he goes home. That could have happened, and then he would be told the date for the next hearing. So you do not need the entire file to be presented before the magistrate on that Saturday. You still don't need the entire file to present that to the magistrate at 9 o'clock this morning. And so what is happening is calculated persecution of Thompson Fountain. Deliberate institutionalization of persecution, victimization, vindictiveness that is happening here now. This had nothing to do, and it's a usurping of the independence of the judiciary. I'm glad that the magistrate said at 2 o'clock, with or without the DPP, I will hear the case. I think the magistrate should go further and say, at 2 minutes past 2, I am dismissing the case for want of prosecution. And if the DPP wants, they can reinstate the case. It is time that people in Dominica stand up and show that they have integrity. What is happening in Dominica is nonsense. I was a police officer and I had to attend at court. I had court matters against me. I had to go in a box and plead guilty or not guilty. I was prosecuted. I understand the process on both sides. And what is happening here is an indictment on the police force and the office of the DPP, and the judiciary better be careful that they don't get drawn into this.
All right, let's, of course, so we're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back for, of course, we have just about 20 more minutes. We have to make it very, very quick. We have to take a break and continue after this. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Attention! We're a go for rocket launch.
Roger.
Engines are ready.
Yay, ready.
Lift off in 3, 2, 1.
Breakfast is ready.
Ooh. Launch postponed.
Give yourself a strong start to the day with Dutch Lady. Milk with essential nutrients, calcium, vitamins, and protein. Dutch Lady, building strong families since 1871.
Sweet mother, I never forget you. For this suffering you suffer for me. Yeah.
Mother's Day weekend, Fête Mama, the entertainment capital. Kind Mama Boy, my mother's house. Former Evergreen Hotel, Castle Comfort will come alive. Fête Mama. Saturday, May 7th, Creole Dance Party with the sensational Ecstasy Band. Swinging Stars Couple, Mr. Mitch, DJ Sly and Prince Wanix. Sunday, May 8th for Mother's Day, Fête Mama.
Satini Mama chante. Yo.
Swinging Stars, a sour mystery avec Coco Stick. Mr. Mix, the Mix Master Prince Wanix, Prosper and Oprah and more. Partners include Val Ferry, Creole Handmade Digital, Fine Footing, Kyrie FM, QFM, the big station, and more. Entrance $30. Health protocols will be observed. Mother's Day weekend. Fête Mama. Kai Mama Mwe Castle Comfort.
Dominica, it's all about healthy harvest. Farmers, calling all farmers. Introducing Healthy Harvest, Dominica's latest and greatest agriculture store. Healthy Harvest for all of your synthetic and organic inputs. Potting soils, Promix, and lots more. Also, we are the agents for Solo Sprayers. So come down today. Location 54 King George V Street, right opposite the Dominican National Lotteries and next to Phone Check. You can't afford to lose out. Call us today at telephone number 245-1814 and check us out on Facebook at Healthy Harvest, improving agriculture, sustaining life.
All right, we're going to take a few phone calls in a minute, but I want to ask this question specifically to Gabriel Christian, attorney at law. I'm just reading a message, and a lot of people are expressing the same important message from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the Republic of South Sudan and Juba. This criminal enterprise has made a monumental mistake arresting Dr. Thompson Fontaine as a top-ranking official of the Republic of the South Sudan government. Dr. Thompson Fontaine should not be persecuted. In addition, he cannot be arrested or compelled to testify in the court of law. Can you share a little more on that, Gabriel Christian, in terms of he being a diplomat?
My first comment is that Dr. Fontaine not only worked for the International Monetary Fund as a distinguished and brilliant economist. I'm reliably informed that he's been paid by the European Union and the British government as an advisor to the government of South Sudan. United States, the European Union, the British government, they've got their intelligence services all over Dominica. They know what this government is doing. Do you believe if they thought that Mr. Fontaine, or Dr. Fontaine rather, was a fleeing felon, was a coup maker, that they'll be paying his salary to advise the sovereign government? Think about it for a moment, Dominicans. Think about it for a moment, members and officers and staff of the Dominican Police Service. DPP, think about this for a moment. The brother that you have incarcerated, that you've treated most churlishly, in a most inhumane way, denying him his freedom, is being paid by major democracies in this world who have all the intelligence capacity. Do you think they would expose themselves in such a fashion to pay the salary of someone like that? But it's more than that, man. I made this statement this morning and I'll make it again. The government of Roosevelt Skerrit is prejudiced against Dominicans of stature. The government of Roosevelt Skerrit is advised by Tony Estefan, who's called Dominicans of stature cockroaches, garbage, pigs at a trough. What do you do with a cockroach? You crush it. What do you do with a pig? You slaughter it on Christmas Day or Easter Sunday, and you eat it. What do you do with garbage? You throw it out in the labas. So this is the vocabulary, rather, of the senior legal advisor to the current government. My wife has a thing that she says nowadays: energy flows where the focus goes. What has been the focus of this government? Look at what we've had. Thompson's a diplomat of a sovereign nation. It's an African nation. Had Thompson been a diplomat of France, would he have been treated that way? Had Thompson been a diplomat of the United States, would he have been treated that way? Had Thompson been a diplomat of Canada or Britain, would he have been treated that way? Indeed, had Thompson been a diplomat of Dubai, the Prime Minister's favorite latest hangout, of Syria, which he said when he formed relations with Syria, he said he was surprised. Would he have been treated that way? No. He would have been celebrated. He would have been brought to Kempinski and dined and wined and dined, just like they wined and dined Montferred, another of their diplomats. So when it comes to choosing diplomats, who has Kerry chosen? Zampoli, Kempinski's, Montferred. What's the other one? Njilap Seng, Maduke. The real criminals, therefore, are diplomats of Dominica and treated with due deference and celebrated by being given our most precious symbol of state, which is the diplomatic passport, and our own brilliant son of the soil, born and bred in Grand Forks, is treated like a common criminal.
The question still remains, and I want you to answer that very quickly there, because can you arrest a diplomat? That's the question everybody's asking. Can you prosecute, if you will, a diplomat.
Brother Matt, are you listening when I said that the Prime Minister said no law, no constitution?
Okay.
If you can give diplomatic passports to criminals who you should have known, or you knew or should have known were criminals, do you respect any law? Are you respect of diplomatic convention? You cannot be a diplomatic convention a respecter of those treaties that we are obligated to abide. When you so misuse the powers of state by giving those conveyances, that's what they are, you see. They were given to those money launderers so they could enter ports of entry. That's what they were given to them for. And you tell me then that our own people, our own brilliant son, Thompson Fountain, you treat him in such a, you use him in such a despicable way?
All right, I'll tell you what. We're going to take a few phone calls because I know Dr. George wants to chime in there a minute there, and we don't have too much time. And of course, Mr. Sheridan, Gregoire, Nicholas George. We're going to try to squeeze in a few calls there quickly, and then we can kind of wrap it up there. Hello, talk to me.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon to you.
As a Dominican, born and bred Dominican, living in the state of Delaware, I have been telling you guys in Dominica, we do not have a democracy. It's only on paper. Dominica is a socialist country, and it's time the people of Dominica understand what that criminal Sheridan is doing to the citizens. It is time. Dominica is not a democratic country. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Another telephone call. Are you there, caller? Yes?
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Yes, Matt, right on your phone, you have information since yesterday morning. If you read the back of he has an identity card. His number NVSO 144. The guy is a diplomat. He enjoyed diplomatic immunity. He can't be prosecuted for any criminal thing, and the government need to be embarrassed internationally in that situation.
Well, I'm sure that, some people will take that on because I'm getting a lot of text messages. Yes, and I see the card. Actually, I've seen the card there that, he holds as a diplomat from South Sudan. So I'm sure that'll be taken up, and the case will be in the next 11 minutes. I'm sure that might be brought up there by his lawyers as well. But Dr. George, can you or will you make a comment at this time?
Yes, I stand to correction, and of course, maybe Gabriel can comment on it as well. But from my understanding, where diplomats are concerned, to answer your question directly, I do not believe a diplomat can be prosecuted for the country that he or she has been assigned during the period of service. I think outside of that country, I think I stand to correction. I think they can be charged or prosecuted, but I stand to correction. The other thing I just want to say, in the interest of time, that I want Thompson to know that he's not alone. Of course, the manner, the procedure, according to Mr. George, in which he has been treated, does not go with due process. But he's not alone. That he has persons in Dominica who love him, who cares for him, and of course, Midcliffe will do what it can to support him. And Matt, in the interest of time, I just want to leave one little scripture with him. I just want to tell him James 1, verse 2 and 4 says this. It says, "Consider it pure joy, my brother and sisters, whenever you are faced with trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete and lacking of nothing. And so it will be okay. Just be strong and persevere." Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. George, I mean, you have been a police officer for many, many years until your retirement. What's the instruction there in terms of arresting and persecuting diplomats?
You need to unmute your mic.
In your country, the immunity doesn't necessarily stand. Now, there's something here now. Thompson is not a diplomat appointed by Dominica. He's a diplomat appointed by South Sudan, but he's in his country. So let us take, for instance, the Prime Minister has immunity as as prime minister. So when he travels, he's a diplomat. He's Dominica's chief diplomat.
Mm-hmm.
When he's in Dominica, our laws provide that only the president shall not be prosecuted whilst he is in office. That is statute. It does not extend to any other public official in Dominica. But as soon as the president demits office, he can be prosecuted in Dominica. But these are things that can be debated by legal experts. But I believe that is the standing rule that is there. I am not even taking too much in this as I am in what it is that our police force senior officers are doing and undermining the integrity of the police institution. The police is of the community. It serves the community and the community supports it. You have to enforce law with impartiality at all times.
All right, let's of course, we don't have too much time. We have 7 more minutes. I just want to reach out to Mr. Gregoire this time because I know there's some movement in terms of, there's a battery of lawyers in the court here with Thompson Fontaine, and everything needs funds. And I'm being told that very soon we will have a fundraising exercise for that very cause, as Nitcliffe has advised. What is going to happen very soon, Mr. G, in terms of getting necessary or raising the necessary monies for that exercise to support causes like that?
Matt, for some reason, the technology kicked in and you were not able to hear the end of Mr. Nicholas's George contribution, which was very sound, but I'm pretty sure we'll pick that up later. But to answer your question, Matt, this is the raison d'etre for Nitcliffe, as Dr. George said. That is what Nitcliffe is there for, to provide advocacy and to raise funds for legal defense. And cases like this Salisbury situation, cases like the missing $4.2 billion, these are essential cases that Nitcliffe would have to look at. So as we speak, Matt, anyone can go now directly to the Nitcliffe website, www.nidclf.org. That's www.nidclf.org. And just click on the donation button and make a donation of any amount that they wish. This will help us to prepare any defense that we can assist Dr. Fontaine with, any defense, legal defense that we can assist the people of Salisbury with, any legal defense that we can assist the proponents of the suit to recover the 4.2 missing unaccounted $1 billion. So the point is, we advise people, you don't have to wait until we have a radiothon. You don't have to wait until we have a GoFundMe. Just go straight to the Nitcliffe website, click on the donate button, make your contribution. You get an automatic receipt, and hopefully soon we will have 501c3 status, and any corporations in the North America or the UK that want to make especially in North America, who want to make a contribution, they will be able to get a tax rebate for the contribution there. So we'll be very happy to raise as much funds as we can for the legal defense funds for situations like this. So really, Matt, I just want to say in closing, Matt, that and thank you for bringing us on this afternoon. I just want to say, Matt, one of the things that surprises me is that this whole thing is about some bad stuff that took place after that meeting that we had on that day. And yet we heard about people throwing stones onto private businesses. We have not heard of one person arrested who was throwing the stones. So why is it that nobody's arresting and charging anyone who threw the stones, but yet you're charging people who are not even there on the scene at all? What is going on? That's why I asked, is this a joke? Because when you said at first, Matt, that the DPP said they were not ready, I mean, since Saturday evening, they arrested this man and put him in this filthy cell. And they say they're not ready, they haven't got the files to present to the judge. How can that be? And then you have to wait until 2 o'clock and he goes back into a cell. Why not just release the man while you're getting ready? If you're not efficient enough to have your paperwork ready, release the man, and when you have your paperwork ready, give him a date to come to court. Seems to me that makes more sense, doesn't it, Matt?
It does. And let's just get our closing comments there. We'll start with Dr. George, and then Nicholas, George, and Gabriel. We have 4 more minutes. We're going to give you 1 minute each. Of course, Dion, George.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matt. Again, thank you, my colleague members of Nitcliffe. Thank you, Matt, for the opportunity to share concern regarding Thompson Fontaine. And of course, it speaks bigger toward the democracy that we are fighting to preserve and to make Dominica a better place for all Dominicans. Indeed, nothing lasts forever. And when government changes, any person that finds themselves in a situation like that would want to be treated with dignity, to be treated fairly, and to bring calm to our country. I want to let Thompson know that there are persons who care for him and love him. And I want the authorities to know that it does not look good, given the track record and then given the publicity of what is going on. And according to Mr. Gabriel Christian, if they can take heed to the voices of the media, which is the watchdogs of the nation, and to persons like ourselves, civic groups and academias that speak for some sort of solution outside of anything that is violent, I think they ought to listen for a better Dominica. That's my closing statement. Thank
All right, Mr. Nicholas George, before we get to Gabriel Christian, we'll allow Gregoire with the last comments. Mr. Nicholas George. Again, we're not hearing you too clearly.
Your mic.
Yes, go ahead.
Right. My comment is that Dominica now needs athletes in the likes of Usain Bolt and the other athletes in Jamaica that are excelling. So it is time for us to walk and exercise our limbs, run, swim, and do everything that it is possible to enhance our athleticism and to protect the democratic system that is now at the intensive care unit at the Princess Margaret Hospital. Democracy is not with us now. And we need to pray that we can recover from where it is.
Thank you very much. Gabriel Christian, the final words are yours. I have to head back to court in a minute. Your final comments.
I understand. I first of all want to thank God for Nature Island Dominica Civil Liberties Foundation. I want to thank God for Q95, Mr. G, Brother Dion, Super, beloved brothers, yourself, Matt. Let us reflect at this moment on Dr. King. Dr. King was imprisoned in the Birmingham jail for marching for freedom. Today, thousands of Dominicans, maybe some say tens of thousands, reside in the United States and enjoy the fruits of his struggle. If Dr. King were alive today, he would ask each of us, including Roosevelt Skerritt, to look in the mirror and to ask himself as to ask ourselves, what is my dream for a better world? I believe that each and every one of us have an infinite capacity for transformative leadership. And that is what Brother Dion and Superintendent George were talking about. Wednesday will be soon upon us. We hope by that time Thompson will be a free man. Dominicans, we must walk, we must run, we must swim relentlessly towards our freedom. Dr. King said, and I quote, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy." Close quote. So, as we stand in the middle of this chaos that Roosevelt, no law, no constitution, Skerritt has inflicted on us, as we stand in the midst of this anarchy, a Roosevelt, no law, no constitution, Skerritt has condemned us to, let us remember Dr. King, and let us stand as men and women of courage, of conviction, of conscientiousness, of compassion, and of character. The character taught us by our parents in Dominica of our youth, who told us, you cannot be wrong and strong. And the government of Skerritt is dead wrong. And all police officers, I appeal to you, do not brutalize your people. Do not kill your people. Free our brother Thompson Fontaine now. Dismiss all the charges, the bogus charges against the opposition, and let us have liberty and democracy in our beloved Dominican homeland.
Thank you, gentlemen. Dr. George, Mr. Gregoire, Gabriel, Kristen, Nicholas, George.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
For sharing your insights here.
Appreciate it.
Good job.
Move here to Dig Yourself Hour.
That was super.